Why a relational psychoanalysis? Because you have, even within psychoanalysis, different modalities. What do you think is the practical difference between relational and some older models, and how does that difference influence your choice of the relational school?
Again, I think that first of all, there's personal experience. I had a fairly classical analysis, and in that analysis, I learned a whole lot. Yet I came against what I thought was an authority structure that did not permit me to feel truly known. I felt at times that a truth was being imposed upon me and I was being put in a certain framework or category. Not all the time. Um, and and then also growing up in a church community that was very authoritarian, I felt that that wasn't exactly the model that I wanted to work in. So as I was studying the relational approach, it became clear to me that Christ was pretty relational in what he did. And he didn't abolish authority, but it was an authority that was laid down for the sake of the relationship and only utilized for the benefit of the person. And so I saw many correspondences between the Christian narrative and what I saw in relational psychoanalysis. There was a humility, there was an acceptance of loving the patient, you know, and encouraging not just looking at difficulties, but at strengths and potential. So while I very much appreciate and have many colleagues who've gone through classical analyses and have profoundly benefited, I appreciate the element of the relational that brings in a humility. And, um, and I also think that it is possible to be a classical Freudian analyst and be relational, and it's possible to be a relational analyst and be very classical. So it really depends on the kind of relationship that is allowed to emerge and that is nurtured. So.
Well, the relationalists from the beginning have been very clear to say that they are not a school of psychoanalysis, nor do they hope to supplant any school of analysis. So, relational uh, approach is a sensibility. It's a way of being with a person in the room. So I believe there's a humility in the relational mindset that accepts that there's two finite people in the room, both of uh, whom don't know or understand everything that's going on and can become ensnared in transferences and countertransferences. And so I think that there's a humility in that relational sensibility that I value very much. Um, I might add that, particularly in the United States, the sort of the power differential of more classical psychoanalysts and, frankly, the arrogance of that approach in the United States almost caused the death of psychoanalysis in the United States. And from my perspective, it's this relational sensibility that has revived psychoanalysis from almost a certain death.
An additional question to that: do you think there's anything beneficial in the classical approach from the point of faith?
Yes, I do. Um, First of all, there are um, Freudian analysts who identify as being relational analysts. So it's quite possible to be um, in a more classical approach and to be relational. So it's just an amendment of how someone practices classically. So I do believe that there is, in a classical psychoanalysis, something that ought not to be lost. Um, Relationalists can tend to become too humanistic, too optimistic, lose the reality of brokenness and fallenness, and from a Christian perspective, something that we need to be saved from. And so I believe that a Freudian classical approach retains the belief and the understanding that there is destructiveness, that is always potential in persons and in societies and in relationships. And that ought never to be lost, I think, in any psychoanalytic approach.